You're listening to the Ballet Piano Podcast, lifting the lid on dance accompaniment.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this episode of the Ballet Piano Podcast. My name is Chris Hobson, and around the Hobson's dining table with me today, I have my beautiful wife, Akiko Hobson.
Hello, it's really weird without the...
Oh yeah, one of the headphones stopped working before we started recording, so Akiko's headphoneless today. My best friend, Matthew Gregory.
Hello, listeners.
And we are honoured that we have a very special guest who's travelled all the way over to East London from Shepherd's Bush, and it is Petal Miller. Hello!
Hello.
How are you, darling?
Better for seeing you all here.
Such a flirt.
I know.
Right. For those of you who don't know Petal originally comes from Australia, and she's had such a varied life and immense career with Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet. It's a career that started in, I think, have I got this right, 1974, 1975?
Well, that was the beginning of the professional career, yes.
But what attracted you to dancing as a youngster?
Well, my mother, really.
Yeah.
And, apparently I don't remember this, but at 3 I could jump up on the table and say, "Oi, look at me." And, she was a great lover of classical music and she was determined, really. I was a late baby. She said I was a menopause baby. And she was in her 40s when she found that suddenly there I was. And she said it was the best thing that ever happened to her.
Wow.
And she encouraged it, really. She often used to say, because my grandfather's a watercolour artist, and she used to say, "You're just like your grandfather, you're obsessed. You're obsessed with this ballet thing." And of course I have been all my life, as you all know.
Yeah.
And at 77 it hasn't gone away. So, it's been a lifelong thing. But in answer to your question, it really was my mother's encouragement, and she was quite determined that I was going to do this. But she was not a stage mother by any means. But she made sure that I knew classical music and I responded to classical music, and she sent me to ballet. And of course, when I decided that I really wanted to be a ballet dancer, the Australian thinking at the time was, well, that's a fun thing to do, but she needs to do something serious, and she needs to perhaps be a nurse.
It's a nice hobby or something.
It's a hobby.
It's a nice way to have fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the family was more or less saying, yes, let her have fun there, but she needs to do something she can fall back on, maybe a nurse. And my mother's whispering, "Don't listen, be a ballerina."
Oh.
So, this was a very strong woman, and I had my ballet teacher, so there were 2 very significant, strong women in my life, and I've always attracted strong women and lovely men. But, it really was my mother. And so she sent me to ballet school, and I absolutely adored it. And apparently, well, I remember I was hailed as very talented. And I auditioned for the newly born Australian Ballet School, and I was refused. My mother was outraged, and I was heartbroken. So, of course, as a teacher, dealing with students that are often rejected.
Yeah.
I was always very, very sympathetic, because I knew that feeling as a young person when the thing that you want most of all in your life, you are refused. And it's I was heartbroken. So then a little bit later, about 2 years later, by this time I was 17, I decided to audition for the Australian Ballet Company. Again, rejected.
Yes.
So that was... a big learning curve that they rejected me, but in actual fact now I say they did me the greatest favour because I decided that...
You then jumped onto the ship, didn't you?
I did, the Canberra, yes. And my parents waved me goodbye. In fact, my mother pushed me out of the nest. She said, "Off you go." And of course, I didn't know what on earth I was coming to, really. I knew London from tourist books. I knew the Royal Ballet dancers. They were all over my bedroom wall.
Yeah.
And of course, because I adored the Australian ballet dancers, but it wasn't meant to be for me.
Yeah.
So I took off and arrived in London in 1965, where music was changing the world.
In the 60s.
In the swinging 60s.
Yeah.
Of course, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and then they took Britain to America.
Yeah.
We were everywhere, you know, and I fitted in because there was a great clan of Australians, suntanned, loud, boisterous. We'd arrived, and we had people like Barry Humphries, who sort of taught us to
yes,
laugh at ourselves,
course.
and Germaine Greer, of course.
Yeah.
When she spoke, we listened. It was a great time. The Bee Gees and the likes of it, and of course, our skirts got shorter and the boys' hair got longer, and it was a time of possibility. Except I didn't have any work, so I went to Paris.
So how did the work come about then? Let's start with your professional career. What
Okay.
was your
Yes.
first inroads into the profession?
Yes. When I arrived in London, I realised that, you know, I was pretty good actually, but
Yeah.
there were thousands that were equally as good as me.
At what age was that? 17, did you say?
18.
18.
I turned 18 on the 14th of October and I left Australia on the Canberra on the 21st. That's how determined I was. Don't remember having any fear whatsoever, but I've never really been too scared of anything much, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, how scared do you need to be?
Yeah.
So the first professional job was I took a lot of auditions and I got a job in a pantomime. I was really thrilled. I went to Stoke-on-Trent. It was absolutely freezing. I stayed in a boarding house that had no central heating. But I loved it. It was my first professional job in England. There was a lot of step ball change and singing along.
course, yeah.
And it was all of that. I had a great time. I came back to London. I had no work. I had very little money. Maria Fay, a ballet teacher, who was very famous, and I'd been recommended to seek her, which I did. And she was teaching at the Royal Ballet School and very important places. So I lobbed into her very damp, very cold, very wet studio in Phil Beach Gardens in West London and did class. Well, this warm, wonderful woman took to me and she said, darling, it's going to take time, but you'll be fine. Just hang in. Well, it was fine, except that I didn't have enough money to pay for classes.
Yeah.
And I told her, I've got a job at the ABC Cinema on Fulham Road. I've got to pay my rent. I'm running out. I can't do 6 classes a week, Miss Fay. And she said, you need to do 6 classes a week, otherwise you're not going to be in shape to get any job. So you need to come every single day, and when you get the job, then you pay me. So
How amazing.
Well,
never-
nice, because she said when you get the job,
That's
she has
right.
faith
She
in
knew.
you.
Yes. And she used to come and see me dance at Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet, and I used to come outside and say, Maria, I owe you the money. And she'd say, every time I see you dance, you pay me. So, you know, I've tried to remember that. But after that, I saw an audition for a discotheque on the left bank in Paris, and I couldn't resist. So I rocked up with a load of other dancers in our very mini skirts. And we were it was a sort of a free-for-all, just rock away. And there were lots of us. I mean, the room was jam-packed in Max River's tatty old studio. And they chose 6 of us, put us on a plane for Paris, threw us into a boarding house, which was unbelievable because the first morning we woke up and one of the girls was covered in bed bugs. And the woman was furious. She said, you dirty English people bringing bed bugs to my establishment. Really? So,
That's a very good Parisian accent.
yeah, well, you know. But of course, the job, it was only for, I think it was 4 weeks, and we were to dance on illuminated drums to discotheque music, and 3 at a time on 3 drums and 3 resting. And they gave us a meal at night. And I just loved it because walking by the Seine in the afternoon and Paris by night, I was having a ball. And then I fell upon the Garnier, the Royal Paris Opera House.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'll never forget it. It was it was so beautiful. And I knew I was off track. And I thought, once this gig is finished, I'm going back to London and I need to get back where my heart belongs. I need to get into a ballet company.
Do you think that's because you left your country and you just thought you wanted to go wild for a little
Yes.
bit? Is that what that was about?
I mean, my mother always said, this is my wild child, you know.
Yeah.
And yes, the wildness, I'm not sure. Well, I've always been a bit wild, so, you know, and I always attracted to other wild creatures. But so I got back to London after that job and started auditioning. And a ballet company came up, and it was for a company I didn't really know, but it was a ballet company, and it was in Johannesburg. So I thought, this is good. And I checked it out and saw what the repertoire was. There were divertissement, Coppelia, things like that. I thought, this will do. And anyway, I quite liked the idea of going to South Africa. So they gave me my fare, and I arrived in Johannesburg, done up in Carnaby Street from head to toe. and
Psychedelic.
They were wonderful. They were wonderful. And it was it was a very interesting lesson because, apartheid was very apparent. And although I was not oblivious to differences because of the Aboriginal situation at home, and if you will see in my book where my father explained to me on Rottnest Island where he was brought up, that there was a prison there, and in that prison were Aboriginal people. And apparently I said, but what have they done? What did they do? Do they have no parents? Are they orphans? Why are they there? So I was, I was not unaware.
Yes.
But of course, South Africa in 1969, this was a big learning curve for me. Professionally, it was wonderful. The director was a fantastic woman. The other dancers were supreme, beautiful dancers, all trained in South Africa. And of course, I got to travel, got up to Rhodesia, as it was known then, stayed all over wonderful little dorps in South Africa, danced at a place that I always remember, White River Ranch. And the story goes that we stayed in rondavels, little huts with straw roofs, that at night time in the river, really very close by, a white elephant is seen.
Right.
Well, of course, I can't recall seeing a white elephant. One of the Corps de Ballet boys said at breakfast, I saw the white elephant. Well, we seem to think it was the grapes from the night before that may have enhanced that vision.
Yeah, or he possibly saw two of them.
Maybe I heard. So South Africa was a very interesting time. It was the director, Faith de Villiers, she was strict. She was demanding. I didn't mind that. I loved it. And we travelled, and I got to know lovely South African friends. I got to understand with great difficulty about apartheid.
Yeah.
And I got to dance. And that was the best thing of all. And many of those dancers have become my long-term friends. And I have a passion for Africa. I love the smell. I love the feeling and the possibility, if you're out in the bundu, of seeing some beautiful animal and the wilderness.
Yeah.
So anyway, I decided after a year and a half that I needed to go where my heart took me, which was I wanted to be in a ballet company in London.
Yeah.
So I left and I went back to London and thought I'm going to go to London Festival Ballet, directed by Beryl Gray, who had been a principal dancer in the Royal Ballet. And I fronted up there, did my audition in a very overcrowded class. She popped in at the very end, and I thought, I need to get to the front quickly so she sees me. She did see me, and she spoke to me after, and she said, oh, my dear, she said, you're so small. Against my fairies, in my lineup, you're so tiny. I couldn't possibly consider taking you. I was devastated, heartbroken. Went back to class with Maria Fay, and again, spent a lot of time in London thinking, what am I going to do about enjoying London, the challenge every day of living here at that time and being in the thrust of the music and the fashion, and the ballet at the Opera House were wonderful dancers.
Yeah.
And so then another audition came up, and it was to go to Winnipeg in Canada. I thought, oh my goodness, this sounds good. And Winnipeg, Canada, close to America. Oh, that's where I need to go. So I dashed in. And again, it was one of those terrible auditions in those days. And I know that it still happens. There are hundreds of dancers, and they're all very good, you know.
Yeah.
And I got the job and went to Winnipeg, and it's in the middle of the prairies, and I thought, oh my God, where the heck am I? But the best thing about it, there was only 25 of us in the ballet company.
Wow.
You work morning, noon, and
Yeah.
night. You go on the road. We went on the road for 9 weeks, solid, coast to coast America, one night stands. Now, if you can do that, you can do
If
anything.
you can do that, that's real
And
small touring
I
company
lo-
life, isn't it?
It was small company touring life. We did America twice, all over Moose Jaw, Baton Rouge, all the tiny dorps in Edmonton, Calgary, you know, all over Toronto, all over Canada, all over America, every state in America. And then we went to Australia, we went to Italy, we went to London. I mean, it was just world travel.
You really were on a touring company life, yeah.
I moved because it was a small company, and because I was, well, ambitious and just loved working hard and being in the studio. I got to do really good things very quickly, and the staff and the team and the dancers. It was an extraordinary time, and I got to go to Australia with the company, which kind of tipped my hat a little bit to Australia that didn't want me.
Yes.
Said,
Yeah.
I'm not, and also to Beryl Gray, I'm not doing too badly. The best was yet to come.
Yeah.
I didn't tell them that, and I didn't know that. But anyway, so my parents, of course, got to see me dance for the first time as a professional.
Yeah.
Which, of course, my mother glowed for days and days. And then went back. I'd been in the company, I think it was 3 or 4 years. I really can't remember exactly. But I decided that the yearning...
You keep coming back to
keep
London.
coming back.
It's got that pull, hasn't it?
Yeah.
London has this
Yeah.
pull, though, doesn't
Yeah.
it, for everybody?
It's been my spiritual home, and I love it, you know. And if you can do it in London, well, you can pretty well do it anywhere, you know. And so I thought, you know what? Beryl Gray, with the Festival Ballet, she may have forgotten how small I am. Anyway, I'll pull up and lengthen my arms, and I'll just rock up. So by that time, I'd gotten to know quite a lot of dancers and they all said, you need to come here. We'd love to have you on board. So, okay, I'll audition. So I went. And on that occasion, she did ask for a couple of solos. And of course, knowing me, I had my music in my handbag, gave it to the pianist. Here's the Peasant Power solo. Here's the Bluebird solo. Here's the Aurora solo. I can do all of those. I don't know, what did I sound like? Anyway, I did them, all of them, and I thought I'd done really well. And again, she said, you know, we've spoken before, my dear, and, you know, you're so small. Oh, my gosh. And, you know, I was so shattered that I just, you know, and I looked up at her and I thought, well, anyone beside you, you know, she's 5'7", which is big, tall for ballerina.
Yeah.
Anyone near you is small.
Yeah.
I rather prefer tiny, you know, than. So I was devastated, and I slunk away to the side, and the dancers ploughed me with cigarettes because we all smoked then, and told me the company was boring and I'd better go somewhere else because I'd be happier somewhere else, and they worked too hard. Didn't help me.
No.
I was devastated. I wanted to work in London.
But these things happen just because of your height.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
It still happens
Yeah.
now.
it happens.
2024 now, and
I've
this still
seen
happens,
so
doesn't it?
many very good dancers didn't get the job
Yes.
They want it because of whatever the reason that you can't
Yes.
change.
Yeah.
You can't change it.
It's
I mean,
heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was devastated every time because I kept, but from back in the Australian Ballet School and company, I kept being rejected, from the things that I really wanted. I mean, Winnipeg was very important, as was South Africa, as was Discotheque in Paris. That was all very important to my building. But, what I really wanted, it kept pushing me away. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to go and see the Royal Ballet. Why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I knew that in those days, you didn't get into the Royal Ballet unless you'd been from the
school.
stable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you were thoroughbred, unless you'd come through the school virtually
Yeah.
born within the pillars of the Covent Garden.
Yes.
But I thought it doesn't matter. Why shouldn't I go there?
Yeah.
And so I had heard that the person who runs the Royal Ballet was a woman named Iris Law. So I thought, well, I'll go find her. So in Talgarth Road, where the Royal Ballet Studios were, I arrived and I said, can I speak to Miss Iris Law? And they looked at me like, who on earth are you? I said, I need to speak to Miss Iris Law, please. So this woman came along and I said, I'm Petal, I'm Australian. And I've come to London to dance in an English ballet company. Can I please audition? She was like, good Lord. Well, she said...
You can't say no to that, can you?
Well, I guess that's right. And she said, well, we don't need to audition. We don't audition. Oh, I said, I know. But I'm Australian and I've come from Australia and I have lots of experience.
Wow.
Well,
Love that, though. Love that.
over the years, she told me she was quite beguiled, really. And I guess she was. She said, well, and somehow the rest of the conversation evolved. And she said, you could come to the class tomorrow. I thought, oh, my God, I've cracked it. I'm in.
Yeah.
Here I am doing classes at Royal Ballet.
How
Oh, my
easy
God.
was that? How easy was that? Just to ask her.
Holy
So she said
moly.
yes.
So I arrived the next morning and found my way to the dressing room, and it was incredibly well organised, all these beautiful bodies, and they all had their spot.
Yeah.
So I dumped my clothes in my bag in the corner and waddled through the corridors following dancers that I was beside myself, these creatures, into the Waverley studio, which was the principal dancers class.
Wow.
And there were these I recognised them immediately
Yeah.
from my books. There was Antoinette Sibley and David Wall and Elfrida Thorogood and Jenna, David Ashmole.
Yes.
And
More of David to come, yeah?
we're saving that bit. And so I thought, oh my God, stop looking, just do. So the class was swift. I knew I could
Yeah.
keep up. And the ballet mistress glided by me and she said, how old are we? I said, 25. She didn't hear. She'd gone. She was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I did this class and I remember thinking, well, actually, I did okay.
Yeah.
And so I ran down the stairs to Miss Law again. I said, can I come tomorrow? Can I come tomorrow? Now, I don't know what she'd heard. I don't know what she knew. But she said, yes. And for goodness sake, wear pink tights, not black. I thought, oh, my God. Okay, well, it's another class,
Yeah.
whatever. So I found some pink tights. I didn't sleep. I was like, I can't believe this. I just have to have another look at them. There they were,
Yeah.
these thoroughbreds. And I thought, am I ever going to fit in there? I mean, really? So I arrived the next day, ran down after class again. I said, Miss Law, do you think I could audition? Do you think Mr. Macmillan would come and see me? I had really no idea the weight that this man had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so naive.
In many ways, that's good, though.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
because you
know-
just sort of do it blindly with your own gumption and it gets you somewhere.
And it's been
without the fear tapping into
Yeah,
you.
it's the passion. It's your
Yeah.
passion that just shows
That's right.
through.
Yeah.
And I think also that it was a little bit of the Australian in me. You sort of rock
Aussies
up.
have this work
Yeah.
ethic.
They do.
They really do.
We won't be
Imagine-
overlooked.
But you've got to know how to play the card that you were dealt with,
Indeed.
haven't you? Akiko, you play the Asian card every now and then. Or you have done in the past, haven't you? I'm a pretty young Asian girl who's just here to learn how to play for ballet, not steal your tunes. Yeah.
Can I just observe your class and I just nick everybody's tune?
Yes, yes. It's a little bit of sort of street wisdom.
Yeah.
Is that how you do it?
Survival.
Yeah.
But imagine after this episode, all these young ballet dancers queuing up at the stage door trying to see Kevin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Queue of 300 people for Mr. O'Hare, please.
Yes, yes. Oh gosh. So
You said, could you audition?
yes,
Yeah.
could Mr. Macmillan come and see me? And well, she said, "Will you be in the class tomorrow?" She didn't say yes or no. However, halfway through the class, the door opened and in came Kenneth Macmillan. I recognised him from photographs,
Yeah.
and another man that I learnt was Peter Wright. And so they sat down and the class continued and I managed okay. Class ended and Peter Wright looked over and he said, can you come over? So I went over. He said, are you Petal? I said, yep. So he said, is that your name? I said, yes, that's my name. He said, understand that you're auditioning. Oh, I said, yes. And off I went, and I remember it. So I said, yes, I was a soloist in Winnipeg and in South Africa. I trained in Australia. I have Vaganova training. I've done this pas de deux, that pas de deux, every other pas de deux you could possibly think of. I want to be a choreographer, and I want to dance in an English ballet company. It would be wonderful if I could dance in your ballet company. Oh dear, the gush, you know.
Yeah.
And I could see, and remembering back, they were slightly amused.
Yeah.
And, you know, because dancers in those days actually didn't speak.
I was going to say,
really.
you
And
must
the
have broken
English-
the mold slightly
Yeah,
with that.
exactly.
Because you didn't have that British
No.
Sort of-
training or
yeah.
hierarchical sort of
No.
understanding, possibly.
And also I was desperate.
Yeah.
You know, I needed this. I was determined to dance here. And if I could pull it off at the Royal Ballet, holy God, my mother would be. So he then asked me a couple more questions, things like, did I have residency, a little bit about my training, age, and all of that. And intermittently, he'd wander over to Kenneth Macmillan and whisper to him, and they would smile. I could see that they were rather intrigued, and I thought, well, this is a good thing. I'll play along with this. So ended up where he said, look, don't have a contract at the moment, but what we could offer you is we have an educational program going out on the road called Ballet for All. And we would like to offer you a position. And they're all potted versions of the Royal Ballet's repertoire.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Things
Yes.
like Sleeping Beauty, things like Birthday Offering, and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. And a couple of the older repertoire from De Valois and from Robert Helpman. Ballets, a couple of ballets I'd never heard of course, but, you know, they were all small versions, and there would be 6 other dancers with me, also in a similar situation, but all having come from their training ground, from their school.
Wow.
So, I said, yes. And he said, and let's see how you go. And maybe we'll see what happens at the end of the tour, and we may have a contract for you. Well, I virtually kissed him. I mean, I was like, really? I ran back to Sinclair Road, where I had a room, called my mother on the public machine, telephone, and my mother said, oh my God, you're going to dance with Margot Fontaine? I said, Mummy, I'm not going to dance with her, but I believe she's there somewhere in that ballet company. Yeah. Well, of course, my mother was completely beside herself. Wow. And so I went off on tour and made lots of wonderful friends, had the best time. And true to his word, there was a contract for me.
Wow.
And when we got back off tour, with the proviso that if for the first year it worked, I would be promoted to a coryphée.
Fantastic.
And I'm sorry, I was given a choreography
and
contract.
then promoted to...
And I would be promoted to a soloist. And I thought, oh my God, it gets better and better. Wow. So that was the beginning of my life with this company.
Almost like a year's apprenticeship style.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. And of course, it was the best thing.
Yeah.
Because I got to work with the good and the great and wonderful, wonderful people, you know. And I learned a lot, you know. And I was with the company for 11 years, after which, as many of you know, I went to Australia and joined the Australian Ballet. And also then I came back to London and taught at the Royal Ballet School. My language, the golden years of those beautiful dancers that are now up there on that stage.
Oh, wow.
But you started teaching, and I know this because I've read Petal's book, which we'll promote shortly. You started teaching at a really young age, didn't you?
Yes.
To fund your fare on the ship from Australia over to London.
My ballet Sorry, go.
No, I was going to ask something, but I'll get onto it as you were.
Yes, because I was always intrigued with the teaching prospect of how we actually do this.
Yeah.
How do we make it work? And I was very young. You're quite right. It was before I left Australia, and to get my fare to get on that ship, because my father stipulated I had to pay for it myself. I had to leave my return fare with him and have £100 in my pocket. My God, what a challenge.
You must have worked your backside off.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. But I was determined. And he was right.
Yeah.
He was concerned. My mother not. Off you go. But my father, yes. And he thought that was a way of me helping me decide, is this too hard? But of course it wasn't. I just did what I needed to do. But I was teaching with my teacher, and we used to go to country schools in Australia where she had small little groups of school children. And because I loved her so much, and she was such an exotic Russian woman who'd been in the de Basel company, I just wanted to learn as much as I could from her, and I sure did.
Yeah.
And so that was where I started learning the fundamentals and understanding that inspiration that you give to the students is so vital. And I also, when I was in Australia, I did my degree in visual and performing arts at Melbourne University, and I worked with a wonderful man, Professor Martin Comte, and he talked to me a lot about delivery, how important that delivery and communication is. And I do have the dancers say I'm their ballet geek, but I also have a rather quirky sense of humour. And I have found with my students, and they will tell you, that, I can conduct a grueling day, as you have to with ballet students. It's repetitive. But also, I just love a good old shriek with them. And they knew that, they played on that, And so teaching for me was a natural thing to do. And for me, it was really the greater part of my adult life, my later adult life.
You taught alongside dancing then, sort of on and off?
Yes, I did. Because Peter Wright, I would go to him and say in the summer, I want to go to Australia and do summer schools. Yeah. I want to teach here. I want to coach there. And he encouraged it. I don't think he had a plan in particular, but he granted me the time and saw that that's what I wanted to do. So I was learning from the teachers that we had with us in the company. Yeah. And fascinated. But I mean, someone in Winnipeg that I learned a lot from was Agnes de Mille. Wow. Because I worked on Fall River Legend with her. And being in the studio with her, how she communicated, because she had such a way with words that you could not misunderstand what she wanted you to feel or do or say with your body. And so that all of that sort of built up in my pool of knowledge, and how to get my dancers to go to the gates of hell. And sometimes it's like that with ballet, but at the same time, you've got to have a gentle heart and be available and kind, and laugh with them. And you're quite right. They still do laugh with me, and they still talk about the things in the class that
You're
we
like
used
a
to do.
mother of everybody, all the students, no?
So many illegitimate children. No,
Can I-
no, it's not.
Can I ask?
Funny you say that because, David said to me before he died, he said he was so sad that we hadn't had any children. And I said, darling, we've got thousands. They're all around the world. We got lots of children.
Yeah.
But I can see, like, when I play for your class, like,
Yes.
I can see that you care about every single of them.
Well, yeah. Well,
Yes, I just felt like your mother
Well,
for them, you know.
kind of have to because it's so precarious what they're going into. And if you're not there with that support system in every way, with your knowledge, with your encouragement, with your mentoring,
Yeah.
They drown. They will. Mostly they'll drown. And I had that wonderful teacher, that wonderful woman, and my mother, of course, that sort of encouraged courage in me and inspired me.
I remember when I was dancing as well, because I have a dance background. And when I was young, if I couldn't pay my fees, that my dance teacher would just give me a free class.
Yes.
Or she'd buy my
Yeah.
lunch on a Saturday or something.
Yes.
Or whatever. Like that's what dance teachers did.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
They really invested
It's
in
not
their
about the money, it's about the
students.
care and the love.
Yeah.
that you give.
absolutely.
And just
I'm-
give you an extra this or an opportunity or a free
Yeah.
pair
Yeah.
of shoes or whatever.
Yes.
There's shoes there you can use or all sorts of little things like that.
Well, Maria Fay, what she did for me.
Yeah.
And nowadays, of course, when dancers or students ask often for my help, it might be a conversation about their future or whatever. It might be something to do with a dance step or something. And they say, how much is it to work with you? How much do you charge? And I say, you can't afford me, darling. You just can't afford me. But you see, you get to a stage in your life when you know that it's time to give back, really.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask, which I ask all of these dancers. When do you know you're ready to stop full time as a dancer and either go into teaching or do something else?
Well, my body told me.
Right, yeah.
And I was 39 when that happened. So I'd had a great innings,
Yeah.
but I'd had no time off. Mm-hmm. I'd never been off with an injury. I'd never had the surgeon's knife.
Wow.
I'd had certainly the odd sprain,
Yeah.
but no. And I put it down to good training and my body is well proportioned,
Yeah.
albeit small. It's well proportioned. And, and so I remembered very distinctly that the thing that came very naturally to me was my turning. I could do pirouettes very easily,
Right.
natural instinct. Suddenly, it eluded me. I couldn't do it anymore. It frightened me. I thought, what was going on? And I couldn't correct it. It was just something. And also because I'd had, I was a very swift dancer. I could move very quickly. That was becoming murky. I could feel
Right.
it. I couldn't get my legs, my feet around the music as easily.
Wow.
And my music, of course, is the thing that for me and for every dancer, music's your language.
Yeah.
If you don't feel your music, how uncomfortable that must be. And so many dancers, not a question of not being musical, but it's a question of not being able to get into the sound.
That's exactly
into
what
the
Anita says. Get
Does
in
she?
the music.
Oh, yeah.
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 All the time.
It's your language. And I often used to say to dancers, you make it so difficult for yourself because you're rushing, settle into your, it will do it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The music does it for you.
Yeah.
And especially you learn that in ballet classes, like having pianists like you two sitting opposite me. This, for a teacher, this can make or break your class.
But what I loved about playing for you over the years is that there's a certain generation. It's the older side of the generation
Yes.
who will set something and go, oh, we'll have this on a particular piece of music.
Yes.
Whereas you might suggest that or you might sing something, but you are so open to the pianist actually putting their interpretation on the music and going, actually, no, that works much better. I like that. I like that. I like this accent. If you just put the accent there, this is perfect.
That's
You
right.
are so adaptable to play
That's
for.
right.
and
You
it's
give
so
a
much
reaction
fun.
to us, no? Like, oh, I love this one.
Yes.
Like, it's quite nice to,
Of
you know.
course, because that relationship is paramount. And what has happened over the years, and I have noticed that there was a generation of dancers coming through that were somewhat oblivious to the music, and especially if they had a pianist or a conductor. And it changed. They were all over the place because during their learning years, because of financial restraints, the teachers had been working with cassette. Class after class after class of music that never changes. And I think it damaged some dancers because you have to have that. When you play for the class and I give the same exercise the next day and you play the same piece of music, it's going to be different. Just because you're human. And that's the moment that those dancers suddenly hear it the way you're playing it and go with it. But that generation of learning from cassette,
Yeah, we bonded, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago. So when I moved down to London when we used to work at the school over in the west of
years
London.
ago,
8 years ago, I think it was.
gosh.
And I was playing for you, and we fell in love with Out of Africa, didn't we?
We did.
Which I sort of knew, but then when I used to work in the Midlands, I used to work a lot with Errol Pickford.
Yes, of course.
And it was Errol who said, give me that. I love that. And of course, he loved all the big grandeur of it, as you did. And I played it for you one day. So I was like, pedal, and you came and he's like, I love this. Play it again. We're going to do it again.
Yes.
Play it again.
Play it again.
So play it again. Play it again, Chris. So we did. But you prefaced the second time of doing this, and it's my favourite story because I was sitting in the corner of, I think it was, is it called Dance Attic or
Dance
whatever it's
Attic.
called?
Yes,
in
Dance
Fulham.
Attic.
Yeah,
In Fulham.
Yeah, in Fulham. Sorry, yeah. And I was sitting in the corner, that blooming awful old piano, and it was, I think COVID could have started in that building. It was awful, wasn't it?
piano's
the piano,
awful.
and nothing about it was overly clean at the time. I'm sure it's changed
It was a
now.
former swimming bath. It's just damp, isn't it?
Yes.
It's just damp.
Anyway.
It's everywhere.
So I'm sitting there in the corner, it's like, okay, we'll play it again. And my favourite line I've ever heard in a ballet class. Ladies, because I was younger back then, I didn't have the wrinkles, I didn't have the grey hair, and I technically didn't have any kids.
You were early 20s, weren't you?
I think it was 29. Yes. Ladies, you've got a beautiful young pianist there playing beautiful music. So you flirt with him with your bodies, and he'll flirt with you with his fingers. And it's one of my favourite things I've ever heard in a studio.
Yes.
And I think I'll remember that forever.
That's right.
It was so much fun. But it was that fun that brought everybody together. And then you
That
got what you
rapport.
wanted out of that exercise. You got what you wanted from that centre of gage.
Absolutely. And I always say, who's playing? Who's my pianist? It's so important. And you two on the piano, it was just a gift. Because, as I've said, you make or break that class. You really do.
But the pianist can only do their bit when you've got a teacher who's also up for being a dancer
Yes.
and going. So we all go on the same ride together, don't we? We don't.
Yes.
It can't just be one side. We all sort of travel down the same
Yes.
highway or motorway together.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it bothers me, and it has always bothered me, that actually the pianist, the ballet pianist, isn't valued enough. And it's a bit like the ballet teacher and the ballet staff. You sort of do all that groundwork, and it also needs caretaking. It needs loving. Pianists need to be loved, because without their music, we have nothing.
But the people who know do know, and there are people in schools like teachers or sometimes students or in companies
Yeah.
that if you maybe feeling a bit down or you've just not had the right thing, people will know. And you've got your friends, you've got your people who will come and check on you, and that's happened luckily everywhere that I've ever worked, and I've had the privilege to work.
And students know too, because they'll say, "Oh, Miss Miller, who's playing today?" And you have to say, "Oh, Miss So and So, or Mr. So and So," and they, okay. Or they say, "Oh yeah, wow, okay, let's go." It's a human thing, and God, we need to be human. Look at what we're dealing with,
That's good. So listen, before we wrap up,
Yeah,
can we talk about the book?
yeah, sure.
Get up, dress
Dress
up, show up.
Yep,
Is that like a motto for your life?
it is my motto. It's what I've always done. What else can you do? Life will turn on you, and we all have our turn. And there are options. You don't have to get up, dress up, and show up. You can lie in bed forever. But it's gotten me through. And when I've had my challenges in life, that's what I do, what I've always done, you know, right from being a child at home.
It's like that stoicism
Yes.
of your generation.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so like good, isn't it?
And my mother, there was never an excuse.
Yeah.
There was no, I don't want to go to here. I don't know, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Come along now. Quickly, hurry up. You know, there was no excuse. If you committed, if you
I just remember when I had my son
yes.
as a baby, and then I think I brought my son to work or something, and then Peter was there, and she looked into my eyes and then said, "Are you a tiger mom?"
Yes. Yes.
I know tiger mums. My mother was a tiger mum.
Good.
Yes. Yes. Well, there's no backing out with a tiger mother.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
you need a very good reason not to be able to lie in that bed all day.
If you saw the preparation for Joshua's recent grade 5 piano exam over at the grand piano in the corner, the two of them, tears, sometimes on both sides,
yes.
or nearly on both sides.
yes.
It was sometimes it was horrendous. I had to leave.
Yes.
So I can't do
Do
this.
stop now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop this fighting. No, Joshua will do it. No, I won't, Mummy. Yes, you will, Joshua.
If only there was just a little bit of more of this in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's about guidelines.
Yeah.
You know, we have to know. And the world is difficult now. It was difficult in my days, but now it's different now.
Yeah.
And I think you need guidelines. You need that support that, yes, you're going to do it. So, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So the book is about that. It's a book of survival, really. And I wrote it because when I was having my most difficult challenges, when the random poker fell, and as you all know, it had a habit of doing to me in my life, I found that reading what other people had written was a huge help to me, because it basically said, hang on, you're not alone. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
There are other people that are in this situation, especially when Simon died, because 500 people a day were dying.
Yeah, back in the COVID times,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed. And so also it meant that when I was reading about their experiences, I didn't have to talk. I didn't have to counsel them in a way, because sometimes when you divulge too much of your own pain, you end in supporting the person you're talking to,
Yeah.
because either they've not felt that, they're bewildered, or they're upset. So I found that reading really helped me. And then I realized after Simon died, what was I going to do with all this grief? There had to be a purpose. So I found myself a wonderful therapist in London, not far from
Yeah.
where I live.
I saw her in the book.
Yes, you saw her. Yes. Kelly Ahern, yes. And because I realized I was 70 years of age and I was heading into a very black hole. And I came down from Scotland to London. It was in lockdown.
Yeah.
And I thought, I need help. I need to be able to be sick over someone. I need to get this out of my stinking thinking. And so I found her. I had to search, but I found the right therapist. And so she allowed, and also I knew I was safe with her. I was confident to say exactly how I felt. And it was her that said, had you thought of writing? And I said, oh, for goodness sake, no.
I dance, I don't write.
No, exactly. And she said, what about a random page somewhere? I said, no, I'm not promising such a thing. No. And then a little while I was at my home and I thought, might help what's going on in my head. And so I started, and that was the beginning of the book. And it is my hope that it will help other people, because I've found a place to put this grief to good use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's affordable, it's brutally honest. And my editor said to me, I'll hold your hand if you're going to move the curtains back.
Yeah.
And she said, if you don't want to, don't write the book. So I knew I wanted to, because I wanted to be able to be very clear that dying and grief must be honored and spoken about. Because when it's shut down and not spoken about, the person in grief hides. They go into aloneness.
Yeah.
And so it must be honored. and spoken about. So that's one of the reasons, and why I support dignity in dying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm about halfway through the book now, but it's your story, but it also paints an amazing journey of what the world was like in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s.
Yes.
It's an amazing sort of, I don't know, wordy picture, if you like. It's of what the world was like, and certainly what the arts world was like, what the ballet world was like. It's amazing.
Yes, when we faced the AIDS epidemic, and my first husband died of it, it was such a shaming thing. And people that had AIDS or who were associated with people with AIDS were shunned.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, and many people were put out onto the street from their family, go away. And we lived with the threat that the Grim Reaper is coming to get you. Whether you like it or not, you will die if you get this. And it was, and then of course now we have 1 pill a day.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've lived that long to see that. But it was a dreadful time, you know. But then, of course, we got the pill and we all ran for it, you know. Things changed and it was okay to be having a great private life, sex like if you want, and having the pill and working your life out. Lots of things happened. And as you say, it was very interesting.
And when you started writing the book, did you sort of know the sort of structure of it, or because your therapist said just start writing and then you can sort of compartmentalize it? Is that how it worked out?
Yes.
And the whole warts and all bit?
Yes.
It's either that or there's no point in writing it.
Quite.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to write
but as you say, with honour and grace of those people involved.
Absolutely. I mean, I did start at a random place.
Yeah.
And it was my editor who said, I'm so moved. I don't know if I can work on this chapter today, but we need a lead up. We need to know what you were like as a child, what your mother was like, how they influenced you so that you can deal with this, because this is truly terrible. And so, you know, there was all that involved, but it clarified a lot in my mind, and it was something I chose to do. But there was something I was going to say to you. What did you just ask me then about how I wrote it? Was it random?
Did you know sort of the structure of the book?
No.
Or you started writing because your therapist told you?
That's right.
And then presumably you can fill in the gaps with, we need a bit more on that, or a bit more about childhood.
Well, you see, I always said that I had a terrible memory. The truth is I don't. Don't ask me what I had for breakfast. But
everyone that writes biographies say it spurs on memories.
It certainly does. And that's very encouraging. But I said, when I started writing, I thought, I don't need an editor. Oh, my goodness, I was...
That sounds very Petal.
Yes, it's very me. I can do this. Well, of course, once I started putting it together, it was episodic and none of it kind of linked in. And then by a very good friend of mine, Rachel Hollings, she coupled me with a woman in America, Elizabeth Kay, who's a historian for American Ballet Theatre and written many books. So she spoke with her and she said, can I send some of your writing, please, to Elizabeth Kay? I said, no, she's a writer. I am not an academic. I'm not a writer. No, I don't want her to see my cobbled language. And Rachel said, no, just 1 or 2 pages. Oh, I said, oh, it doesn't matter. Okay. Well, Elizabeth immediately said, I want to work with you. I want to work with you.
How fantastic.
Really? I said, well, I didn't think I needed an editor. And she said, forgive me, but... So I said, well, I'm going to say this. This book has to be written by me. It has to be in my language. It has to be my voice, because my friends will be the first to say, she didn't write that book. Yeah. So I'm asking you, if you want to work with me, please keep my language. You may find it uncomfortable, you know, but it's my language. So she said, absolutely, I go with it. But of course, she put it in order. And, and when it got to the
Yeah.
very difficult bits, it was her who said, look, I'm going to hold your hand.
Yeah.
You need to go there. Do you really want to help other people?
Go to that place
Yeah.
that's the dark place, if you like.
Because then it's contrary to what I believe.
Yeah.
If you're not going to say it, that grief is going to be glossed over, then we're right back where we are.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. Somebody's died. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, it's got to be honoured and spoken. So that's why I went there.
And was it upsetting writing those particular bits?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
yes, but also it was joyful because those three men, Michael, David, and Simon, were very close to me.
Yeah.
And it was almost like they were in the room. Go on, say that.
Yeah.
Say that. Which was, it was joyful actually,
Yeah.
and I loved it. It was a great 3 years.
So, well, your book is available from Amazon
Yeah,
and also from the Royal Opera House shop, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is
So
indeed.
if you're in London,
yeah,
get to the Opera House shop
yes,
and buy it. And if you're not in London, go on Amazon.
yeah.
And if you search Get Up, Dress Up and Show Up, it will come up.
By Petal Miller,
Petal Miller Ashmole.
No,
Nope.
Petal Ashmole
Oh,
Winstanley.
gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
All right. Usually Petal will do it because
Yeah.
it's just done.
You're only one petal.
It's only one petal
Well,
of the ballet world.
actually, there used to be another Petal in the world. Yes, and would you believe she was the PA to Beryl Gray in Festival Ballet? Yeah, and became a very good friend of Derek Dean's. And he always used to say, "I've got Petal one side, Petal the other."
Right, well, listeners and viewers, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been,
An absolute honour for me.
It's been
It's
amazing.
been absolutely wonderful.
before we go, you can look at the link on screen if you're watching. Petal's Instagram is at Miller Ashmole. So give Petal a follow because you'll see what she's getting up to and you'll see photos of her and her lovely website's coming up.
No, website's up. Website's there.
And the website's here, and it is, for the listeners, it's petalashmolewinstanley.com.
Yep.
And that's on the screen if you are watching. Petal, it's been an absolute honour. Thank you so much for trekking from the west to the east of London on this dreary bank holiday Monday.
Oh, listen, we need you in our world. Keep playing music, keep making music for us. Pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank
Love you
you.
lots. Love you lots.